It is 10:02. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Los Angeles Rams are Super Bowl 56 champs, defeating the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20 in SoFi Stadium. The Rams went up 10 early in the second quarter before 17 unanswered points from the Bengals had them leading nearly the entire third, down 6 with less than 90 seconds left. Matthew Stafford found Cooper Kupp for a 1-yard touchdown pass and a 23-20 lead for L.A., and the Rams defense held on the following drive to seal the win.
Burrow trying to keep it going, gets spun down, gets it away, and incomplete. It looked like P-Ron might have had a shot to make the grab, but the Rams now running down to celebrate with a defensive play.
Al Michaels on the NBC call as the Rams sacked Joe Burrow 6 times on the night and overcame a first-half knee injury that ruled out Odell Beckham Jr., but the NFL's Offensive Player of the Year, Cooper Kupp, stepped up to win Super Bowl MVP, 8 catches, 92 yards, and a pair of touchdowns. It's the Rams' second Super Bowl championship and the first for Matthew Stafford after 13 years in the league. The 13th-ranked Tennessee Lady Vols defeated Vanderbilt at home on Sunday, 66-52. Jordan Horston with a double-double, 16 points and 13 rebounds as Tennessee improves to 12-4. Brene Alexander led Vandy with 19 points as the Commodores fell to 12-14. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Welcome in on this Monday. Good morning. Hope everybody is recovering from the Super Bowl hangover, getting ready to put a bow on the 2021-22 NFL season. Spectacular fashion in Super Bowl 56 last night. It was a lot of fun to watch. We're going to be talking about it all day long if you want to jump in. 615-737-1045. That's the number. You call that number, Lucas Panzica, who's making everything happen. You'll speak with him first, and then we can dive in to how far away the Tennessee Titans are from what we watched last night. Obviously looking for local ties in this game and seeing the way that these two teams went at each other. It's pretty interesting to kind of dissect. And the way in which that game was won, where you've got Matt Stafford being the difference, you've got Cooper Kupp as the MVP, and you've got Aaron Donald potentially in a walk-off with the game-winning play. It was really fun. 23-20, the final score at SoFi last night. And I really thought throughout the course of that, I wonder how many people felt this way. I felt throughout the course of that several times where the Rams, to me, I thought it was just kind of like destiny. I'm like, and nothing makes sense about this sport. The football gods, they want the Cincinnati Bengals to win. What a terrible situation to have Odell Beckham Jr., who seems to be getting ready to, he's setting up for a big game before he gets ruled out in the first half with a knee injury. And as soon as one of their biggest stars went down, it felt like the Rams offense was kind of reeling. You had turnovers, 2 interceptions to be precise, and that brought the Bengals total throughout the course of that postseason 9 takeaways in those 4 games. Really impressive run by Cincinnati, but if you're a Rams fan in the local audience, I don't know, but if you are, congratulations to your football team. It was a lot of fun from start to finish, halftime included. Super Bowl 56 really put on a big show, and with the opportunity for Joe Burrow to go out there and try and win it. I mean, I don't know how people felt, but as soon as he hit Jamar Chase on that big catch and run in the fourth quarter, I really thought that they were going to have the opportunity to make this thing happen. I thought that Joe Burrow was going to be able to win this game. It was really, really competitive, and frankly, I thought it was going to look about like that. A little more low scoring than people anticipated. If you bet the under, you were making money last night. But to see the way that the Rams responded, to see the way, the the picture of Odell Beckham Jr. sobbing on the sidelines after the fact, after they win the Super Bowl, I thought was really emblematic of all the different things that organization has tried to do after going to a Super Bowl under Sean McVay the first time around and being a bit hapless on offense and losing to the New England Patriots and it taking only one touchdown in that game to decide that game. And Matt Stafford doing the thing that Matt Stafford does, which is throw turnovers, right? Turnovers are an NFL coaching staff's worst nightmare. You know how that goes. You've seen it completely and totally derail your football season, right? But the unprecedented way in which that quarterback responded, we'll talk about this later, because you guys heard me come on the air the Monday after the Bengals loss by the Titans, look at it and say, you know, I'm still of above average confidence in Ryan Tannehill. I still think that you can win with Ryan Tannehill a game like that. But after watching the way that Stafford threw touchdown pass after touchdown pass, even though there were moments like that tip drill interception that they had, I thought they were dead. I really did. But when we cited that study last week, if you were listening, from Pro Football Focus about how undeterred Matt Stafford is on the very next play following an interception. He's the best among any NFL quarterback in the last 10 years. Now, maybe you're not looking for a lot of variance that way. Maybe you don't want to live and die on those turnovers. But everything that the Rams did to get into this game and to win it felt like the perfect reaction to losing. Football is so much about what you learn in the losses that you take. Anytime you talk to coaches about this, it's exactly what they'll tell you. Of course, you're infuriated by the result, especially when you feel like, in the case of the local team, when you feel like all the momentum is on your side, things are lining up just right, and then everything goes to hell. The lessons learned in losing in football are how great teams and great organizations respond, the way the Rams did. Now, the difference is they didn't do it in a one-and-done situation. The difference is they went to the Super Bowl. They put together a season where it felt like Sean McVay had to be perfect as a coach, as a play caller, around the limitations of Jared Goff. And that what you saw that organization do in all the years since, having a little luck to get Odell Beckham Jr. for basically pennies. I don't know what his actual salary ended up being this year, but because such a substantial percentage of it was being paid in crypto, like I don't think he cost the Rams more than $100,000 this year to have that on your roster, even if he got hurt in the Super Bowl. He helped get them there. And then Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald, like it was star power at the end that made the difference. And the conversation for MVP, even though Kupp won it, is going to be between he and Donald. But my God, Matt Stafford, that made all the difference in the world. Because not everything had to be perfect. Not everything had to be perfect for that football team to win, and yet they did it anyway. What were Lucas, let's play a little early trivia. Good morning, by the way. It's lovely to see you.
Yes, good morning.
Good to be back. Felt like it'd been a minute. I feel like I've been home from Los Angeles for like 4 days, but I just realized that like this is the first time that we've seen each other in a week. Good to see you.
Are you still jet lagged?
Am I still jet lagged? No, I got over it. Like I got up at 4 a.m. Nobody cares about my sleeping habits. No, thank you. What was I going to ask you?
I don't know, some sort of trivia.
Completely derailed it. I was rolling, man. I had a point. That's going to piss me off.
It's a shame.
That was perfect.
It's a shame.
That was so perfect. What happened there?
You tell me.
You had to ask me about the jet lag. 615-737-1045. Maybe we'll come back to it coming up next. But the question that I have for you is this. What thing that the Rams did, the way that the Rams constructed their roster, the idea that they are going to go potentially 7 seasons without a first-round draft pick because they went all in for right now. Not worried about mortgaging their future, being in a position where you can survive with mid-round draft picks if you go out and your free agency luck hits or your free agency evaluations hit, you're able to get players at value like Odell Beckham Jr. You have the perfect situation with the Jared Goff, Matt Stafford swap between the Los Angeles Rams and the Detroit Lions. Is that model replicable for NFL teams like Tennessee, who are sitting there on the border, kind of looking at this and being like, we have that kind of pass rush? You saw the way that the Bengals lost that game. We talked about it all week long. In the trenches. In the trenches. And Quentin Spain, after the fact, just getting dragged across the surface of the sun on the internet because he was a part of the offensive line that gave up the pressure, the sack that lost Cincinnati that game. After Joe Burrow, bless his heart. How much more can you ask that guy to do?
Someone needs to just take Quentin Spain's phone from him.
No, why?
Someone take his phone away.
No. I think put it on a poll. Does somebody need to take Quentin Spain's phone from him, or does the world need his tweets? Because I'm here for the comedy. 615-737-1045. You can jump in if you like. Is this replicable for the Tennessee Titans? We're going to talk about it next.
Hey, Rocket, what's my mortgage rate? Rocket, when am I closing? Is anyone there? Rockets are really cool, but they don't speak mortgage. You need a home loan expert for that. Get pre-approved for your next mortgage at thehomeloanexpert.com.
Welcome back on this Monday, reacting to Super Bowl 56, the way that the Bengals lost that game and the way that the Rams were able to win. Matt Stafford, by the way, was spectacular last night, even though he wasn't the Super Bowl MVP. This is courtesy of Paul Hembekides at ESPN Stats and Info. Matthew Stafford has won 90 career games, including the playoffs. He has led a game-winning drive on 45 of them for straight up 50%. So Matt Stafford, who likes to live dangerously, did so last night. 2 interceptions in particular, 3 touchdowns total, though, and was just gunning it the entire time. Complete and total fearlessness. But we know that the final play for the Bengals was just an unmitigated disaster on the 4th and 1. I could not understand what they were doing when Joe Burrow tried to force Joe Burrow tried to force the ball to the running back. I think it was Samaje Perine on the play. It was not, it was in the area of him, but he was clearly under duress. The play call itself was questionable. And to listen to the Rams radio network, I saw this clip going around this morning, calling the final play, and the way that the Rams play-by-play crew sniffed it out, I thought was really, really interesting to hear their perspective of. This was the Rams radio network in the 4th quarter, 43 seconds left on the 4th and 1 for the Bengals.
Creepy. They rush forward. Burrow to throw for it. He's hit. He's hit. He's sacked. He throws it away. He flings it away on 4th down. Aaron Donald got there. Donald takes his helmet off in celebration. He flips Burrow to the turf and forces the incompletion on 4th and 1. He signals to his ring finger on his left hand. And you can build that man's statue out SoFi Stadium right now. The greatest of all time on defense does it in the biggest moment of Super Bowl 56.
That was the final play, the final Bengals offensive play, ended by Aaron Donald last night on the pressure, got the sack technically, even though Joe Burrow was able to try and get the ball out of his hand in the final seconds. It was just a Herculean effort. And the storyline, look at you had NBC with the breaking news before the game, Michelle Tafoya and Rodney Harrison. Look at Rodney Harrison with the scoop in the pregame that Aaron Donald was considering retiring if they were able to, in fact, win the Super Bowl. That's crazy to me. Absolutely insane, but it would be such a great moment, such a great walk-off moment for him, having one of the most prolific careers that we've ever seen, to walk off on top like that. He's only 30 years old, and he hasn't felt like he's been around, or at least dominating for that long, right? We can talk about Aaron Donald as one of the, he's a first-team All-Pro 7 times throughout the course of his career. So I can't say that it's a smaller sample size of dominance. He's been doing this for quite some time, but just never with the proper pieces around him, never with the help on offense that somebody like that deserved. 8-time Pro Bowler. He's a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and now he's a Super Bowl champion. And if he walks off on top, does that make Jeff Simmons in line to be the next Aaron Donald? Are we going to talk about him that way? If there's no Aaron Donald in the sport, the guy was so good. And it wasn't just rushing the passer. He was making plays against the run. He was able to shut it down against the Cincinnati Bengals last night. And that explosive offense was getting chunk play after chunk play the way that they like to do, even though Joe Burrow was getting batted around back there. It was a tough scene for the Bengals last night in the Super Bowl. But kind of looking at the way that this game played out and talking about what is able to be replicated in this situation. What about the circumstance can you draw parallels between, right? We were talking about this prior to the game. Which model are the Titans closest to? Where the Bengals have drafted their offense almost entirely organically. They've put together a ton of pieces on defense in free agency through the past couple of years, and then the Rams have just mortgaged their entire future as a super team. to continue to take cracks at this thing in a big way. They don't have, there will be 100 names called, just about 100 names in the NFL draft before the Rams make a pick this year. They don't have draft capital. And yet it doesn't matter, right? None of it matters if you win. If it results in the thing that you're mortgaging your future for, which is ultimately to hold the Lombardi Trophy the way that Los Angeles was able to do in SoFi Stadium last night. But it's not a one-size-fit-all model, the way that you kind of look at these things. There are teams that might and will look at different options to try and replicate what the Rams have done. I think there's a couple of teams in the AFC, including Tennessee, that should be considering something like this. I think Kansas City, given the window that they have with Mahomes, should they not be thinking something similar, given the fact that they already have the quarterback? Buffalo the same, right? Just hell with it. Complete and total arms race in the coming off seasons. Let's go out and try and get one while we have the talent at the quarterback position. But I don't know that wholesale changes are going to work exactly the right way for teams like this. We were talking about this earlier before we came in to do the show today, Lucas and I, about what's the precedent for the Rams, right? What team has been constructed like this to go out and not concern themselves with draft picks, not concern themselves necessarily with the future, go out and find a perfect circumstance to get a franchise-changing quarterback in where you've already got the skill position players, you've already got the talent all over the defensive side of the ball. What is the precedent for this? And the most recent one that I could think, I don't know if there's been another one in the modern free agency era, right? Because you really have to only look at the sample size of free agency. The next closest that I could think of was with Peyton Manning, but not with peak Peyton, right? I think that was the 2015 Super Bowl, where they went out and got DeMarcus Ware for that run. They went out and got Aqib Talib. Von Miller was at the height of his powers. You've got all these defensive stars all over the place, and you're winning with a quarterback who's a shell of himself, but is still one of the brightest in the game, still able to manage the situation and do just enough to keep you out of trouble rather than put you in bad circumstances. Physically limited, but mentally still there. And you've got the defense that's going to unleash holy hell on Cam Newton for 60 minutes. It was brutal. We all remember watching that game. That's it didn't feel quite that extreme with Joe Burrow and the Rams front four last night, but it was pretty interesting. This was Sean McVay talking about the future of Aaron Donald, because I guess somebody, whether it was Aaron Donald himself or somebody in Aaron Donald's party, that spoke to Rodney Harrison and Michelle Tafoya prior to the game, because NBC was running with that, and it ended up being so. Michelle asked him, Aaron Donald, about it after the game. But this was his head coach talking about the future of the most dominant defensive player in football right now.
I haven't talked to him about his future with our team. Certainly hope that means he still wants to be a Ram, but guys like him are why you coach, Jordan. He has elevated everybody. I think the epitome of greatness is making everybody that you're around in every situation you're a part of better. It's exactly what Aaron does, and that still doesn't do justice to what an impact that he's made in terms of elevating our whole organization. And I promise you guys, I was mic'd up so you guys can hear. When it was the fourth down and you could see they got into the shotgun and they were probably not going to run the football, I said, Aaron's going to close the game out right here, and he is the effing man.
Sean McVay rolling in it last night. We're going to get to more Sean McVay sound, because I'm still trying to figure out what the hell a war daddy is. He called Matt Stafford that last night. We'll hear from Sean McVay and Matt Stafford later on in the show, because I want to talk about Matt Stafford, the quarterback, in particular in more detail. But just the way that it completely changed their fortunes. And you do have to remember that when you're talking about replicating the model, right, that the two players who were up for MVP were two players who were drafted by the Rams organization, core players, right? So they got the franchise changers in Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald and said, okay, what piece is missing once you've filled in the collection of talent around them? I think that A'Shawn Robinson and Leonard Floyd along that defensive front are as impactful as anybody out there. Von Miller not quite at, his height anymore. He's, by the way, both him and Odell Beckham Jr. free agents this offseason. How long does it take before it starts? Because NFL organizations can officially start talking as far as contracts are concerned. The free agent negotiating window, it opens up 1 month from today, Lucas. How long do you think it takes before people start clamoring here for Odell Beckham Jr. and Von Miller? Because they're both unrestricted this year.
We're going to hear that. We're probably going to hear that pretty soon.
Are those reasonable requests?
Depends on the money.
Spicy.
I'd have a tough time seeing it for Odell, especially, that's a guy that clearly wants to be in L.A.
Yeah. Well, and you've heard them, and they want to be in L.A., right? Because they're getting on in their careers. Odell is almost 30. He's 29. Von Miller in his 30s. Both of those guys can be great contributors, but they're not going to push you over the top, right? We're not talking about Von Miller and Odell, even though, Odell was on fire to start that game, man, because all of the Bengals coverage seemed to be focused on Cooper Kupp because that guy's going to get his numbers, but you have to find ways to slow them down. The way that Odell started off that game with a couple of big chunk plays and the touchdown to start the game, you just felt like his dad, who helped force him out of Cleveland, vindicated.
Very vindicated, yeah.
Odell,
he's a big reason why they won the Super Bowl.
Odell Beckham Sr.?
Jr. Well, I suppose senior in that regard, too, if you're going to lump those together. But it's because everything we talk about, them pushing the chips to the table and hired guns and mercenaries to come, they all worked. Every move worked. It's like the Braves. Every acquisition they made after the Acuna injury worked on their way to the World Series. So it's one thing to make those moves, and it's another when each one of those moves completely pays off.
Now, but we're not talking about moves made within a season. We're talking about moves made over the course of, 4 years?
I'm talking about moves made within a season. I'm talking about Matthew Stafford coming in and having an MVP case for a large stretch of the year, Odell Beckham being productive, even hiring Eric Weddle off the street, and he's calling plays in their defensive backfield as a 37-year-old.
Yeah, the Weddle thing was kind of a comet across the sky, a shooting star.
Exactly. And then Von Miller, just to compliment Aaron Donald, all of those happening in the span of one season that you can point to saying big reasons why they're sitting where they are right now.
I'm just saying, like, those things in real time, but those, like, I'm not trying to take away the importance of them. I guess what I'm saying is, are those the most important moves, or are those the most obvious moves after you have the roster, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, everything from 2017 when they lost to Tom Brady because they couldn't score a touchdown and Goff looked lost, right? Everything that happened over the course of that, and then to get in the position where, okay, NFL teams, when we talk about them being a piece away, they're never actually a piece away. Because it wasn't just Stafford, right? It's not just the one piece. It's Stafford and Miller and OBJ. And you make the correct moves in the season. There's free agency stuff associated with that. Didn't have a ton of contributions from their draft picks this year, but still, they don't have draft picks. They're just picking the groceries as they go along with proven players that can help them after they got the bones in place, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. Is the process a 4-year one, or is it a 1-year one? That's, I think, at the crux of the question of, can this be replicated? Can other teams find a way to do this? Tennessee, I honestly think, is in this kind of window, right? How many teams, and I'm not asking for a number right off the top of your head, but like, legitimately think about the question. How many teams do you consider to have a more talented roster than we do here in Nashville? Right? How many teams outright talent? I'm not talking about remove them from, well, I am talking about remove them from the scheme, right? Just on their face value, given where they play, where is the greater collection of talent and depth that exceeds Tennessee? There's a handful of teams, right? Not a ton, but a handful. Nobody is going to sit here and argue that the Bengals are a more talented football team than the Tennessee Titans. You would say Kansas City. you would say Buffalo, even though the defense in Buffalo is definitely past its prime. You're talking about a legitimate rebuild that's going to have to go on there, especially given the way that the money is going to go up as they try and keep that offense together around Josh Allen. Tampa Bay is past their prime, although interesting stuff over the weekend with the Bucks and a potential Deshaun Watson link. We're going to talk about that later on in the week. I just don't know where I look at a more prime situation for the window that they're in based on draft classes, free agent signings that have worked, some that haven't, some draft classes that have missed outright. You could look at the last two and say there's not enough meaningful contributors there. But I'm looking at the core of that 2019 class, right? That's a foundational building block type of thing to help put you over the top, where you can find a Roger Saffold at the time to come in and be the supplement that you need him to be along the offensive line to help them be great. Where Adam Humphries wasn't quite the move that you thought it was going to be, but it ultimately helped you get a situation where you understood the kind of personnel that you need to play with. That 2019 class is getting ready to come up contract-wise. You're about to move out of that window from where those foundational pieces, those 5 starters out of 6 draft picks that you hit on, that's getting ready to evaporate just like that. So how close is another team to the one piece away window than this team is right now? The question is it actually just the quarterback? Can it be boiled down to just that simple of a piece? Where you're talking about Joe Burrow, there's never been a quarterback who was sacked the most times in the NFL in a season and then played in the Super Bowl. It's never happened. I saw Dan Orlovsky, or I think Lucas saw Dan Orlovsky this morning screaming about that Joe Burrow is going to turn into the next Andrew Luck if they don't get him some help. Completely derailed him last night, almost killed him against the Titans. That's not a more talented football team. I don't think that's a team that was near prepared from a construction standpoint of how they were built to go out and try and win a championship right now. I think they just found themselves there. And it worked, right? Turnovers, 9 of them throughout the course of the postseason, and a quarterback who's got a lot of promise. Because the line from Al Michaels after the game, right, was, there's Joe Burrow. I'm sure we'll see him back in this game very soon. And you always have those kind of conversations, right? Like, how can a team who showed promise in one season not get back or not have the clear and most obvious path back to the championship game? But we've all seen how quickly that can evaporate. And I'm trying to figure out if locally that evaporated in the 2019 championship game or if this current roster still has a shot at something. Because I don't think it goes much beyond next year. When we come back, we're going to get into we haven't talked about the halftime show at all, but we're also going to talk about the Titans and their roster construction. By the way, later this week, I'm going to have a list of free agents that I'm prioritizing this offseason for Tennessee. We're going full offseason mode. We're also going to, we'll obviously talk Preds and basketball as things stay relevant, but the Combine's 2 weeks away, and it's already in the point of time where we have to legitimately be thinking about these things because the NFL's just not gonna let off our necks. 615-737-1045. That's the number. Your phone calls on the other side, and Lucas wants to fight about the halftime show, and I think it's going to be a compelling argument. That's next.
Hey, Rocket, what's my mortgage rate? Rocket, when am I closing? Is anyone there? Rockets are really cool, but they don't speak mortgage. You need a home loan expert for that. Get pre-approved for your next mortgage at thehomeloanexpert.com.
Welcome back. Reacting to Super Bowl 56 last night. Rams over the Bengals, 23-20. Cooper Kupp, the MVP. Now everybody, fresh start, right? Football season is officially over. There's a little bit of a depression that's about to sink in. But now begins the fun stuff, right? Now begins the hope trafficking. What can my favorite team get? What can they buy? What can they draft? What can they bring in that's going to help me think that my team is going to win the Super Bowl next year? The NFL's got it figured out. Now, not only do they have it figured out from a attention-grabbing standpoint, but the halftime show was unbelievable. Unbelievably good. Never do you see consensus like that on social media. There's at least one person on Twitter at any given point. In fact, there's at least 100,000 people on Twitter at any given point that hate everything, that just hate something, right? Never unified consensus. That's redundant, but never consensus on something that we can all watch together communally, just like a sporting event, even if it's in the middle of a sporting event, the biggest sporting event, and say, just fantastic. Bravo. Golf clap for everybody involved. And I got on the phone this morning because you got Snoop, you got Dr. Dre, you've got Mary J. Blige, Eminem, you've got 50 Cent looking like a whole dollar bill. Like everything about it was perfect.
The 50 Cent thing I love because, in the music, he's replicating the music video, right? Where he's doing hanging and doing the crunches. But in the halftime show, he's not doing any crunches. He's just dangling.
No, there's no crunches to be done there.
He's just kind of dangling around.
I mean, he got down, to his credit.
Yeah, oh no, he was good.
But no, I thought he was fine. But like watching how puffy his face got while hanging upside down, I was like, oh, this conceptually, I love it. I appreciate the significance of it, right? Because you got like in the Snoop Dogg set, you had the picture of Snoop in the background that was going between his face and the Doberman's face, right? I thought that was a really nice touch. Like a lot of callbacks, a lot of nostalgia. Every millennial in the audience going nuts, and you got Snoop crip walking in the Super Bowl. It's incredible. It's incredible.
It was awesome.
The whole thing. And I called you this morning, and I said, well, do we want to do anything on the halftime show? Because you never get universal agreement about the halftime show. What did you say to me?
I still think Prince is still the number one.
That's not how you phrased it.
How did I phrase it?
You said that. I thought it was a bit overrated.
I thought there felt like recency bias in the moment because I felt like the overarching reaction was, oh my God, the greatest halftime show of all time. Like as it's happening. And I feel like we almost do this every year.
Maybe. No, we do not do it every year. The best thing to come out of last year was the meme of the weekend running around.
Unquestionably, that was the best thing to come out of it, yes. But I do feel like we overreact in the moment every year of, oh, it was amazing or it wasn't that great. Now, most of the reaction was the latter, and it was awesome. Like, it was probably my second favorite halftime show that I've ever seen. Like, it might have passed Tom Petty for me, and I worship Tom Petty. But for me, Prince still is always standalone. Just how iconic that performance was. I don't know if you've ever seen the little mini documentary, like 5-minute video about it, where someone told him, Prince, it's going to rain, and his response was, can you make it rain harder? I mean, he just can't. To me, there's nothing more legendary than what Prince did that year.
Now, that was Super Bowl 41. That was Colts-Bears, right? That was Peyton Manning over Rex Grossman.
Was it that long ago?
I believe so. Super Bowl 41, right? That's
wow.
Now you got to fact check me on my Roman numerals. XLI, I'm pretty sure, is 41.
I don't know.
Why do they have to do the Roman numerals?
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough.
I'm not smart enough.
Yeah,
either.
2007, right? That was Colts over Bears. That was absolutely the Super Bowl 41 halftime show. Look at that. My Roman numerals in school paid off. And I went back and watched this. I'm watching it, without the sound on right now, which may be counterproductive for a halftime show. But I started watching it back during the commercial break, the Prince show, right? Because you got the stage that's built like the symbol that Prince used to be called when he changed his name for a period of time to not Prince. Now that you got Prince on the stage, you got him out there with a marching band. The rain is going. It looks fantastic. The dancing is impeccable. And still, I thought, even understanding as Prince is the best of the individual acts.
It's a guitar solo for me.
Because you got to, well, yeah. I mean, I got a bit graphic on Friday. I think I got.
You did.
I didn't mean to do that.
Hey, I tried to brush it off real quick.
Has that ever happened to you? I mean, probably not to you because, like, you're the whole play-by-play, but you ever get too comfortable in front of a microphone?
Let's hope not.
Yeah, that happened to me. So,
but that guitar solo, like,
it was a bit phallic. You know what I'm saying? That's it.
But you're right. The solo took you to a different place. Like, to me, it'll always stand alone.
I think for the energy and for, the home crowd and the environment and the home team in LA, I thought that the experience of Super Bowl 56 was greater than the Prince halftime show. But those are the two for me.
Fair. Like the West Coast vibes, old school night, LA rap. That's fair. Yeah.
Like Prince as a concert, it would be unquestionably better. But for that 12-minute interval of time, right, I did not think, because they didn't try to mix and match songs in a way that was counterproductive, where you were really being kind of just heavy-handed with it, right? Sometimes they get too cute with the way that they mix things back and forth. It gets a little convoluted.
Yeah.
I thought everybody had a clean set. I thought the transitions to one another were perfect. I thought the camera, I thought everything about it aesthetically was executed as well as I have seen. Outside of, the hyper-choreographed things, right, where you're talking about, Beyonce and
Lady Gaga, jumping off a platform.
Right, Bruno Mars, right? Everything is down to, like a science, basically, in the way that they choreograph those things and practice. J-Lo, another one, like those. But I thought from an execution standpoint and from the energy, because it's just bangers.
Yeah.
Man, just hit after hit. I couldn't find anybody that hated it.
Anderson .Paak was a nice touch.
Just sitting there on the drums.
But yeah, that was awesome.
I thought it was among the best, but if you come at me with a hand of Prince, I'm not going to be able, I'm not going to be able to outright dismiss you in the way that you kind of dismissed me this morning.
No, this show was awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
When we come back, we are going to get into the conversation about this football game and about Matt Stafford, really, to kind of dive into the difference that he made. Cooper Kupp, the MVP, Aaron Donald, the game-winning play. But when we come back, we're going to talk about Matt Stafford and within the context of Ryan Tannehill. That's next.
It is 11 a.m. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Los Angeles Rams are Super Bowl 56 champions, defeating the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20 in SoFi Stadium, the second straight year where the Super Bowl champ gets to win it in their home stadium. The Rams went up 10 early in the second before 17 unanswered points from the Bengals had Cincy leading nearly the entire third quarter, and then down 6 with less than 90 seconds to go. Matthew Stafford connected with Cooper Kupp for a 1-yard touchdown pass in a 23-20 lead, and the Rams defense held on the following drive to seal the win.
Burrow trying to keep it going, gets spun down, gets it away, and incomplete. It looked like P-Ryan might have had a shot to make the grab, but the Rams now running down to celebrate with a defensive play.
That play had Aaron Donald pointing at his ring finger as it sealed it for the Rams, who sacked Joe Burrow 6 times on the night and overcame a first-half knee injury that ruled out Odell Beckham Jr. But the NFL's Offensive Player of the Year, Cooper Kupp, stepped up to win Super Bowl MVP with 8 catches for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's the second Rams Super Bowl championship, the first for Matthew Stafford after 13 years in the league. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 on this Monday. Welcome in. If you haven't been hanging out with us, if you've been with us for the first hour, we're happy to have you back. 615-737-1045. Jump in if you like. 615-737-1045. That's the number. Lucas Panzica, he's making everything happen. Going to get into, actually, we're going to have the head coach of Ravenwood football, Will Hester, who was at the Super Bowl last night because Van Jefferson, Brentwood, Tennessee's own, Ravenwood High School's own, one of the Rams' Super Bowl winning wide receivers last night, and also a proud new dad. Congratulations to him. So Will Hester's going to join us, and we'll get the sights and sounds. We'll check in to make sure the Jefferson family is doing okay, because that had to be pretty. I mean, I guess he didn't know that his wife was taken off basically on a stretcher.
Well, all the publicity was about Odell possibly having his wife having his child during the Super Bowl.
I was gonna say, was it that's right?
I don't know if
Odell
he's married, but yeah, Odell's baby was supposed to come at some point yesterday or maybe some point this week.
Right, but Van's wife legitimately went into labor like at the game.
Yeah, he like sprinted off the field during the celebration.
Well, yeah, but did somebody let him know? Like, that's an interesting question. Like, if you're a coach, this would be shady, right? If you got word that Van Jefferson, and you need Van Jefferson, right? Because Odell Beckham Jr. is not playing in the second half. If you get a call from like the coach's box up in the rafters at SoFi being like, hey, Sean, like Van's wife just got taken off in a stretcher. She's going into labor. He's having a kid. Do you tell him? Or are you like worried that you're going to rattle him from a mental standpoint?
I would think he knew that his wife left the stadium.
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
I think that would be an interesting question. Now, Van Jefferson, he's not going to do any public appearances probably in the near future, but I would be dying to know if the coaches knew before he did, and whether there was any hesitancy to tell him, or whether he did get told until after the game. Somebody would have to tell him.
What a day, huh? What a day for Van Jefferson.
It would be disorienting. Would you? I feel like you'd almost want to space that out a little bit, right? Because that's a lot. That's a lot to have happen. Anyway, Will Hester, who was Van Jefferson's coach at Ravenwood here locally, will join us coming up next. But in the meantime, this story, Lucas pointed this story out to me that we did not, from 3 days ago, coming out about Sean McVay, because we discussed the idea that on the broadcast, Rodney Harrison said it first and then Michelle Tafoya echoing it, that if the Rams were to win the Super Bowl, Aaron Donald would consider retiring, which I thought completely ridiculous. And then this article from 3 days ago about Sean McVay, who's 36, youngest head coach to ever win a Super Bowl. He's been to 2 already. This is the headline. Los Angeles Rams, from Nick Wagoner. He's ESPN's, I think Nick Wagoner is the 49ers reporter, but apparently he's doing some reporting on another California team. Anyway, ESPN.com is where the story is. Los Angeles Rams coach Sean McVay ponders future. Says he wants to prioritize time with family prior to the Super Bowl. As he enters the biggest game of his professional life, followed by the biggest summer of his personal life, Los Angeles Rams coach Sean McVay spent time Friday pondering what all that means for his future. McVay doesn't have the answer to the ideal work-life balance, but he made it known during his team's final media availability before Sunday's Super Bowl that it's something that has been on his mind. I love this this is a quote. I love this so much that it's such a passion, but I also know that what I've seen from some of my closest friends, whether it's coaches or even some of our players, I'm going to be married this summer. I want to have a family. And I think being able to find that balance, but also be able to give the time necessary, McVay said, I have always had a dream about being able to be a father, and I can't predict the future. You know, I jokingly say that. Oh, man.
Well, it's a crazy thing to think about because he's in the same stage of life as a lot of his players. He's 2 years older than his quarterback. He's younger than Eric Weddle.
He's made the playoffs in 4 of his 5 seasons.
He's 7-3 in the postseason. The trajectory that he's on, 7-3 in the postseason as a 36-year-old head coach.
I'm just trying to process. Now, I mean, the quote itself doesn't like outright say, I'm going to retire if we win. Quote, I don't really know. I know I love football, and I'm so invested in this thing, but I'm in the moment right now. At some point, too, if you said, what do you want to be able to do? I want to be able to have a family, and I want to be able to spend time with them.
Well, the report also has sources telling Jordan Rodriguez, who does cover the Rams for ESPN, that he would consider TV if he were to step away.
But he's 36. What?
And they reference John Gruden kind of doing it after winning the Super Bowl with the Bucs, but that's certainly a different scenario.
Can you imagine if Mike Vrabel won a Super Bowl after all the, I almost said a bad word, after all the crap that Titans fans have been through, turned around and just been like, yeah, I'm going to go play golf. Do some TV? What? That's crazy to me. Why was nobody talking about this story?
Yeah, I don't know. The Donald stuff really, nobody asked Sean McVay about his future last night.
The New York Post reported Thursday that television executives would have interest in McVay if that was something he wanted to pursue, noting it is not clear yet if he would want to do it.
He'd be good at that.
His Campbell's Chunky Soup commercial kind of sucks.
But he'd be good at TV.
Hey, he'd be fine. I mean, if we could do this, he could do this.
He's the guy who can remember a play from 6 years ago. You know, remember that video at Rams training camp?
He's 36. Like, how is this a conversation? And maybe, I don't know, because this is not some kind of, like, this isn't going to start happening with young coaches and players at the peak of their profession, just saying, yeah, if I win when I'm out. But maybe, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what McVay makes on his contract. I imagine he's well compensated.
Yeah, probably.
I would imagine he's taken care of. Aaron Donald obviously is making generational money, right, on just a second deal. The numbers are getting crazy in the NFL right now. Maybe I can't imagine. And listen, none of us, most of us, all right, maybe some people out there have played sports at the highest level out there listening to us. If you have, what are you doing listening to this show? But my point being is maybe because the money is so insane now, people legitimately start to consider this. Coaching is a totally different thing, right? Because, like, that's the cherry gig. You're not a player. You're not worried about. I mean, McVay, I know played quarterback in college, right?
Miami of Ohio,
right? But this was not something where you're talking about. All right, I'm making a decision that's best for my physical well-being. This is like the cherry gig.
He wants to start a family.
Maybe we're not the right people to be talking about this.
Players talk all the time about ending on their own terms, right? Like Ramon Foster will talk about that. He was able to walk away on his own terms from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Aaron Donald is probably mulling that over right now at the top of his game. Do we have to have that conversation with younger head coaches that have, he's accomplished everything you can accomplish. He's won the Super Bowl.
I mean, and these people's lives are hell, right?
Yeah.
Like Mike Vrabel looks so much older, respectfully to Mike. Like Mike looks so much damn older than he did 4 years ago. They age like presidents in these jobs. Because they're insane people, right? Maybe it's not the best use of their time. Maybe you laugh out loud at the idea that a coach's life would be miserable, but like it's sustained misery over the course of time where you're talking about, how you work your way up through organizations, and then once you get there, you're fretting over every little detail, and then still a million things can go wrong because the amount of preparation put into these games when there is just so much random that happens in a football game, mind-boggling to me. But like when they talk about like sleeping on couches, sleeping on like blow-up mattresses in facilities because they have a short turnaround for a Thursday night football game, and it's a conference opponent, right? Or when Mike Vrabel's making jokes about what he's doing on Thanksgiving and he's eating Chinese food with Stretch. And then you laugh when he talks about his best friend Stretch winning Coach of the Year. But yeah, that's who he spends the most time with. Oh, man. 36.
Younger than some of his players.
I'm not in that stage of my life. Maybe perhaps that's why this is such a mind-blowing concept to me. Because I'm not, I don't have a family. I'm not somebody who's terribly focused on just not on that part of my life right now, right? So maybe I'm the wrong person to have this, to be thinking about this because it's running through my prism. But I don't know. That would be fascinating.
It wouldn't be so mind-blowing to me.
Really?
Walk away, make very lucrative TV deal, potentially. Walk away from the game as a champion.
You wouldn't
spend time
get
with
bored?
your family, start a family. You can step back into coaching literally anytime. Literally anytime he wanted to, he could come right back into coaching.
And it would be like the John Gruden thing, right? Where every year he's more and more in demand, and that you use that as basically a hostage situation for whatever television network is employing you.
Every offseason he's not coaching. He's the youngest youngest coach to ever win a Super Bowl.
People, I mean, to a degree, the Manning cast is something like this, right? Like Peyton doesn't want to travel. He doesn't want to be in a booth. He doesn't want to be away from his family. Like Peyton Manning wants to sit in his basement with Eli in his basement and screw around with a bunch of their buddies on a Monday Night Football game. And he's done it on his terms. Like that's not ESPN completely capitulated because ESPN knows that even as big and as mighty as they are as the biggest brand name in sports, they're not getting Brady and Rodgers and Goodell and Saban maybe all together on one broadcast.
Yeah.
What? So they've completely folded and let the Mannings do as they like. They just signed a contract extension. And Amazon's going to be throwing money at everybody as they further their grip on sports. It would be so interesting to see Sean McVay walk away and just be like, yeah, I'm going to do TV and hang with my kids for a while. And maybe I don't even have to do TV in the conventional way. Maybe I can dictate a little bit of this.
We never talk about coaches wanting to end things on their own terms, right? That we never talk about that. They just always keep going and keep going and keep going.
No, because there's never been a coach with this kind of like foresight to basically say, yeah, I have an identity outside of my job. What other coach can you say that about? These people don't have lives outside of this. Maybe, LA living.
Sean McVay might
find some stuff to do. Lori is in Nashville, wants to chime in on this Monday. Good morning, Lori. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Hey, I was just going to let you know, I read an article last night that Van Jefferson's wife had asked that he not be told if she go into labor, that she wanted it to be his day. and he could meet her at the hospital later.
Really? That's fascinating.
Yes, so that's really all I have. But there were several articles on it, and so I'm assuming that they abided by her wishes, and he didn't know till the very end.
Thank you so much for the call, Lori. We appreciate that context. That's pretty selfless.
Coach Hester might know.
Well, why don't we ask him? Coming up next, we're going to speak with Ravenwood High School head coach Will Hester, who was at the Super Bowl, who, of course, coached Van Jefferson, the Rams wide receiver, who not only became a champion last night, became a dad somewhere in the third quarter. Maybe he knew about it. Maybe he didn't. We'll find out. Talk to Will Hester coming up next.
Hey, Rocket, what's my mortgage rate? Rocket, when am I closing? Is anyone there? Rockets are really cool, but they don't speak mortgage. You need a home loan expert for that. Get pre-approved for your next mortgage at thehomeloanexpert.com.
Welcome back on this Monday. Buck Reising here with you until 1 o'clock, reacting to Super Bowl 56. Rams over the Bengals 23-20 in SoFi Stadium last night. Good night for Middle Tennessee talent. Well represented, certainly on the Rams side of things, in the Super Bowl, just generally with Bryson Hopkins, Jalen Ramsey, and Van Jefferson. And not just representing on the field, but some of the people who helped get them to that spot, like Coach Will Hester of Ravenwood, who joins us now. Coach, did you enjoy the Super Bowl?
Once in a lifetime thing, guys. Never been before. Really, I guess I had no reason to go before until yesterday. But man, what an amazing day for Van Jefferson. What an amazing day for everybody associated with him and his family and the Rams. So
unbelievable to watch, and I'm sure to experience as somebody who I know took a lot of pride in working with Van and getting to coach Van in your first year at Ravenwood in 2015. I mean, just how much have you seen? Not just, and we'll get to the part about him, becoming a champion and a dad in the same, basically over the course of the same 4 hours. But like, how much pride do you take in the player that he has become?
I mean, I take a lot of pride in the player that he's become. I really didn't have much to do with that, though. Let's be honest. When your dad is an NFL receivers coach, and you're being groomed to be an NFL receiver, he was pretty darn good when he ever got to Ravenwood High School. He moved in the spring before his junior year, so the spring after his sophomore season, from Detroit, where his dad had been coaching Calvin Johnson. He moves to the Titans. I had just taken the job at Ravenwood, so we met and kind of hit it off, and kind of the rest is history. But he was going to be a great player. The man he's become and the dad he's become, those are the things that, just are super rewarding for me to see because, I remember him as a 16, 17-year-old kid, you know what I mean? And now to see him as a man and doing the wonderful things that he's doing both in the community and on the field, it's just great to see.
Ravenwood head coach Will Hester is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Got the chance to see his former player Van Jefferson play in the Super Bowl last night and win Super Bowl 56 with the Los Angeles Rams. So Van was able to have it was in the middle of the Super Bowl and had his second child last night in the middle of it. Coach, I don't know if you were sitting with the family when his wife was taken to the hospital, went into labor in the middle of that, but that has to be it sounds like he didn't know until after the game was over immediately.
Yeah, I mean, clearly he knew that she was going to have a baby at any time, and I think she had some, contraction-type pains and stuff leading up to the game. But, no, she was sitting directly behind me. Like, I was afraid I may have to catch the baby if it got to the point. But, his wife, Samaria, is such a trooper. She's a graduate of Innsworth High School herself. So
yeah.
She's a local girl. And it was – she tried to tough it out. She wanted to be there for the whole thing. And, but right around halftime is when she felt like it was time to go, and she went on, and then Van's parents, and this is actually Van's third child. His two other children were with his parents, and they met Van on the field right after the game, and I think that's when he first found out that she had actually had to go to the hospital at that point.
That's incredible. So, I mean, is this like sitting in the exit row of an airplane? Do you get like a briefing before you sit down in front, and are like properly, prepared for what may go down in the middle of this game?
I mean, I don't think anybody was prepared. Obviously just trying to be sweet to her, make sure that she was comfortable as she could be, and get her some Gatorade when that was called for. But she had a lot of people there around her caring for her. Van's family was there, Van's aunt was there, and some of the other players, girlfriends and wives were there. So it was all hands on deck. But she did her best to make it through the game. Baby boy didn't have the same desire. I guess he wanted to make it a little more dramatic, so he came on.
Coach, Ravenwood coach Will Hester is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. We've actually had the opportunity, Coach, to talk to your quarterback, Chris Parsons, on our high school hero segment throughout the course of the season. We really appreciate you taking some time. Glad that you enjoyed the Super Bowl, and looking forward to catching up as the high school season gets a little closer. Appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it very much.
That's Coach Will Hester of Ravenwood High School. That's laugh out loud funny.
Awesome story.
Laugh out loud funny. Can you imagine? You can imagine sitting down in front and just kind of being like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen, but in some way, you have to know you're probably going to be involved if you're within that kind of proximity to a woman who could potentially go into labor at any given point.
That conversation 10 years from now. Dad, tell me about the day I was born. Oh, do I got a story for you?
It was almost on the concourse right outside the soft pretzel stand. Oh, that's commitment, though. And for his wife to not, I don't want to say, to not want him told until after the game because it's his day, like, that's a pretty selfless. I know we talked about this earlier, but that is an incredibly selfless way to think about a thing that is a Super Bowl is something, but this is also childbirth. Like, I understand that it's the third, so you know that you've been through this before and you understand the miracle that childbirth is and all these things. But for your wife to be like in that moment, yeah, you know what, the Super Bowl, handle your business, then you'll come see us at the hospital afterwards. That's a pretty cool thing. 615-737-1045. You can jump in on our conversation if you would like to. I think that kind of going back through this and transitioning into what I think the next steps are, right? Because that's where the conversation pivots. Now that we are officially every NFL team in the offseason, we know where every NFL team is going to be selecting now. We know what the next steps are. The combine's in 2 weeks. The tampering period opens up just 1 month from now. Like, it's about to be full fever pitch off-season type of stuff. With the Stafford portion of this and the fact that the Rams had the piece or put themselves in a position to be the one piece away, that piece ultimately ended up being Matt Stafford, even if it wasn't completely and totally that, right? A couple of different things that needed to go into this for them to get this done in the middle of the season. The Matt Stafford component of this, I think, is fascinating because to listen to Sean McVay talk about him last night and to understand that Kupp and Donald were the MVP candidates, it was a decision between those two. Game-winning play made by Aaron Donald, the touchdown scored by Cooper Kupp, and the fact that they just kept finding ways to feed him the football. Stafford, though, as the point guard for all of this, as the person who, has the engine to the offense, to listen to Sean McVay talk about him last night after the game, I thought was pretty interesting.
Talk about the toughness.
This guy's a war daddy. I think when you look at the way he competes, the resilience, the mental toughness, nobody knows really what a great competitor this guy is. I think back to when he was playing you guys, when he ends up dislocating his shoulder, and he ends up finding a way to stay in the game, throw the game-winning touchdown pass.
So that's Sean McVay talking after the game about Matt Stafford. Lucas, I know we're doing this new thing where we have you read things off Urban Dictionary. Sean McVay called Matt Stafford a war daddy. Do we have a definition for war daddy on Urban Dictionary?
Oh, it is.
Are you scared?
It is an inmate slang term for a pimp in a male prison.
Did you feel good about that?
I will not read any further.
Do you think that's what Sean McVay meant to call his quarterback?
Now, there is another definition.
You think Sean McVay served a lot of time where he'd be picking up prison slang?
There's another definition, a beastly defensive lineman that eats up blockers and spits them out for dinner.
Okay, if you want to do that with your quarterback, that's fine. How many? I don't want to go much further down the list with you on the Urban Dictionary definitions. That will conclude that portion of today's program.
By far, the part of this show I'm most afraid of.
What? Just get good. You know what? Good. If I get too comfortable in front of the microphone, I'm going to bring you down with me. There's going to be some things on record from both of us by the time our our time together concludes.
Yeah, I rebuke that in the name of Jesus.
Caleb Farley. Jesus got nothing to do with that. 615-737-1045. That's the number. But Matt Stafford, a war daddy, right? This guy who was, a loser, for lack of a better term, right? Like just, and maybe not, maybe you want to have some more nuance than that, right? To just outright call Matt Stafford a loser as a player. I'm not saying as a person. I don't want that to sound like I'm attacking him personally. That's not my intent at all. But you did not associate Matt Stafford with winning of any significance. Matt Stafford, who is going to be at the top of almost every NFL passing record by the time that he gets to, closer to the end of his career. He's in his 30s right now. But I was listening to Mark Sanchez talk about this the other day at Radio Row. Sanchez and Matt Stafford came in the same class out of Georgia and USC, right? And to see the way that Mark Sanchez kind of talked about him and the work ethic that he's seen him put in all throughout the course of his college career, through the pre-draft process, and now trying to culminate in a Super Bowl. This was prior to the game, of course. But Stafford, this totally changes, as it should, any conversation about Matt Stafford. I'm not saying that, I'm not going to fly off the handle and do the is he a Hall of Famer thing today, because I saw that starting to be floated around. And as I said, statistically, he's going to be better than any quarterback that came before him. Not just because of the way that the passing numbers have gone crazy, but now with an additional regular season game in the NFL, you're just taking a bicycle pump to his stats. But with Stafford, this completely changed everything that we think about him. Matt Stafford, not quarterback of any consequence. Always good, always talented. You get the cliche going around on the internet every time he'd make a no-look pass, as he did in the Super Bowl yesterday, saying if this was Patrick Mahomes, we'd never stop talking about it, which is just a whiny thing that people on the internet do when they want attention. But it's true, right? Matt Stafford, hugely talented, but never associated with winning of consequence. Now, champion. 26 of 40, 283, 3 touchdowns, after throwing the 2 interceptions. Unbothered in the slightest. Just rocket launching. Passes down the seam to Cooper Kupp in traffic. Completely, I don't want to say unaware, that's not the right term, but completely unfazed by everything that was going on around him. And I thought it was pretty interesting to watch him in the postgame. Because I did the primetime show after the Super Bowl. Obviously, I'm not going to go head-to-head with the halftime show. But I did the primetime show directly after the game. And I was watching Matt Stafford's media availability. And I was watching Matt Stafford talk with ESPN. And I thought it was so interesting to see how and maybe, I don't know if anybody else felt this. Maybe this was I don't know, maybe it's a weird thing that I picked up on. But I thought he was shockingly unemotional after the game. For all of the narratives that we have created around Matt Stafford, for all of the perceived frustrations about years of mediocrity in Detroit and now capitalizing in the moment. Listen to him with ESPN last night, because I thought his level-headedness in the moment, right after winning, I thought it was interesting.
They played a bunch of man coverage. They were doubling Coop on every third down, and we just missed on a few plays here or there that could have been big plays for us, and we on that final drive, I thought Sean did an unbelievable job of letting us go out there and play with a bunch of tempo. So many guys stepped up. Coop obviously had some huge plays, and then the game winner was just icing on the cake.
He just sounds like it's just another press conference.
It sounded like they had just won a big game, but not the Super Bowl, right? No, super emotional. No, I know he did the we're going to Disneyland thing after the fact with Aaron Donald, but it was just kind of like, yeah, we went out and did it. It was just another big game. Now, I don't know what that says about Matt Stafford. I don't know how much of that is just more of us paying attention to Matt Stafford than ever we have before, because,
He had never won a playoff game, and all of a sudden he's won 4 and a Super Bowl, 4 consecutive playoff games, and, including the championship. The best performance of that game to me, was Matt Stafford. Because as great as Kupp was, as great as Aaron Donald is, as important as his final play, his final moment was, I came away from that saying, if Matt Stafford isn't in that game, if it's another quarterback that just doesn't have that kind of demeanor, as silly a thing as that should come down to, just the demeanor of the quarterback, just how he handles himself, how he manages those kind of emotions. Does it just boil down to that kind of a guy with, of course, superior arm talent than few people that we've seen play the position? I thought he was the most important player in that game. I think if you were doing the game ball or MVP or anything, whatever you want to do, you want to give him a truck afterwards, whatever they win after they win the Super Bowl. I think that Matt Stafford was that individual, even as the Rams pass rush was just burying Joe Burrow and making Quentin Spain and that ridiculous offensive line that has no business in the Super Bowl looking even more foolish than they're making themselves look on Twitter. By the way, are you baiting professional athletes from my Twitter handle, by the way? Is that something you're doing while I'm on the air?
I tagged Quentin Spain in the tweet. Just feels like the right thing to do.
From who? What tweet? More context.
From the poll question. The poll question of should Quentin Spain have his phone taken away or no, the world needs to see his tweets.
And from whose Twitter account did you do this?
From your Twitter account.
From my Twitter account. And you tagged him because you're baiting professional athletes from my Twitter account.
In fairness, I told you I was going to tag him.
This is saying things into my ear while I'm distracted and hosting a radio show. Your phone calls coming up next. We will also get into why my faith on Ryan Tannehill has been a bit shaken. Maybe it's recency bias. Maybe not. That's next. Welcome back on this Monday. Happy to have you guys in for the show. Buck Reising here with you until 1. Don't forget, I'm going to tell you, I've got a full list. I'm already in full list mode this offseason. I've got free agent priorities for the Tennessee Titans to target this coming offseason. Tomorrow, we're going to debut that list. Maybe we'll put some super corny imaging behind it, make it a big production deal. But in the meantime, we've been talking about this game last night. We've looked at a couple of different angles, and the Stafford part of things really is interesting to me. Apparently, it has also piqued the interests of some of our listeners. 615-737-1045. We got Donna, who's in Dallas, who wants to chime in on this Monday. Good morning, Donna.
Hi, how are you guys doing? Yeah, I'm in Dallas. Lots of press here about how clear-headed, relaxed, Matt Stafford could run a team at 5 years old, bringing his little peewee guys out there. Very chill kind of kid. And then his wife went through really complicated, as if any brain surgery isn't, but very, very complicated brain surgery in Detroit. And I think his whole thought process is, I'm not sweating anything but life. I'm just not going to worry about anything but life. And he was the right guy at the right team. He's just Joe Casual. So it's perfect that he's with the Rams.
Thank you so much for the call, Donna. I'm glad you brought that up, right? That life experience can really put things in perspective for you. I'd not forgotten about that, but it didn't – I guess it didn't come into the equation for me last night that in 2019, Kelly Stafford, his wife, she was diagnosed with acoustic neuroma, which was a slow-growing tumor perched on the nerve from her ear to her brain. That sounds horrifying. So going through that, I mean, she had 12-hour surgery, reading from an article from the Sporting News, a 12-hour surgery to get it removed immediately after she was diagnosed, and it's something that she has overcome. I believe she's a mother of 4 right now. It just that makes you sick to your stomach thinking about having that in the middle of a family's life who has, conceivably everything.
Yeah, that probably put things in perspective for him.
I would say so. 615-737-1045. Rob is in Nashville up next. Good morning, Rob.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for taking my call. Not to compare mine to Matthew Stafford, but my wife went through the same thing, so I can totally sympathize with what he had to go through. So this was just recently too. But anyway, I think Matthew Stafford, he played well last night, but I mean, I can't say that he's any better to me. He's just a little bit better to me than Tannehill. He just kept him out of the situation of, not losing the ball game. I'm going to say this, and I know you guys hadn't, and I ain't heard nobody say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. But I think that referee, when calling the penalties on the Bengals last night, was, like they say, it was ticky-tack, and that kind of changed the momentum of the whole entire game. That's all I got. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for the call, Rob. And I think, though, to your point, Rob, nobody's saying that Matt Stafford is, clearly and I think most people would say, actually, clearly and obviously better than Ryan Tannehill, right? From a talent standpoint. But
100%.
Isn't that the difference of what we're talking about? I understand that Rob doesn't want to jump to overwhelming conclusions about Matt Stafford based on one playoff run, but it's the playoff run that matters because he did the thing that you need to do, that 31 other teams don't do. You won, and you were a big part of the reason why the team won. I don't, even though the officiating really didn't matter until the end of the game. It was driving me crazy. I won't often get super animated while just watching games at home. For the most part, I'll just watch, take notes, relevant parts that I know we're going to talk about, just different things that jump into my head as we go along. I don't normally get upset, but I was pissed when they called that OPI or didn't call that OPI
on Ramsey
in the game, and I understood. Like, I was making jokes on Twitter. I was like, Jalen Ramsey hot seat, and people were like, "No, Buck, you're an idiot. They didn't call OPI." Because Twitter can't do nuance. And then Matt Stafford, almost the next play, I think it was, Stafford throws an interception. Matt Stafford, hot seat. No, Buck. It's just people tip like it was the tip drill interception. People just, there's no sarcasm font on Twitter. I understand this. I know what I open myself up to when I just throw things out on the internet without considering the larger set of the population and how they're going to react to it.
That was Tennessee on Tennessee crime there, that OPI.
Yeah, man.
That's Oak Ridge against Brentwood Academy.
T. Higgins went like flexing on him after the fact. I'm like, buddy. By the way, always, the lesson from that, kids, always commit the OPI. Always commit the OPI. You're going to get the benefit of the doubt as far as that was concerned. But, I mean, to have that happen so late in the game, that felt like the officiating having true consequences in one of the most pivotal moments of the football game when they had not really been a factor other than to tell Vernon Hargraves to get the hell off the field. What is that? What is that guy doing? I was so confused by the penalty because I saw this. It didn't catch me like right out the gate that it was happening. But Vernon Hargraves, wasn't Vernon Hargraves like a first-round draft pick?
Yeah, he was very highly regarded coming out of Florida.
He was inactive. He has been consistently inactive. I think first stop was the Bucks. Yes, drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Anyway, Vernon Hargraves has been a bust as a first-round pick. He's inactive for the Cincinnati Bengals yesterday in the Super Bowl. He's in joggers, right? He's in street clothes at the Super Bowl. And on the first interception, the Jesse Bates interception, this dope comes off the bench onto the field as an inactive player and is celebrating in the end zone with the rest of his teammates like he's done something. Man, get your ass off the turf.
Did you see what Kenny Vaccaro tweeted about it?
No.
I'm pretty sure Braves would have released whoever right then and there. Middle of the game, you're cut.
I saw Lawan tweet about it, just like prayers for that guy.
Yeah, so Vaccaro, in response to Lawan, said Vrabel would have done. You're done.
Mike would have choked. We would have seen, Bruce Arians got some heat for slapping a player on the back of the head this year. I think we would have seen a domestic situation. I think we would have seen. I think it would have come to blows between the player that did that and Mike Vrabel if that ever happened on a Titan sideline. Can you imagine? 615-737-1045. When we come back, we're going to talk about the moment last night because you guys know I've been on this Tannehill hill. This Tannehill, it's too much. You guys know that I've been on the Ryan Tannehill thing, right? You know how I feel about it. You know that I feel and have felt consistently since their season ended about a month ago that you could still win a Super Bowl with Ryan Tannehill. There was a moment in that game last night in the Super Bowl that made me question that faith in Ryan Tannehill, and we're going to talk about that coming up next.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Los Angeles Rams are Super Bowl 56 champs, a 23-20 final over the Cincinnati Bengals in their home stadium in SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. The Rams went up 10 early in the second before Cincy rattled off 17 unanswered. Down 6 with less than a minute and a half to go. Matthew Stafford connected with Cooper Kupp for this 1-yard touchdown pass.
Stafford, receivers in tight. He gets the snap. He cocks his arm. He throws a pass. Caught with the leap. Belt high, far side of the end zone. Touchdown, Kupp! The Rams have taken the lead! The Rams have taken the lead! 1:25 to go!
That is Kevin Harlan on the Westwood One call. Cooper Kupp, the NFL's Offensive Player of the Year, also Super Bowl MVP. That was his 8th catch, 92 yards, and a pair of touchdowns on the night. The Rams also sacked Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow 6 times. It is their 2nd Super Bowl championship and the 1st for Matthew Stafford after 13 years. Free agent running back Adrian Peterson arrested on Sunday morning at Los Angeles International Airport in connection with what airport officials say was domestic violence after an alleged verbal and physical altercation with his wife on a plane. He was released on bond later Sunday. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour on this Monday already. Welcome in, welcome back. If you've been with us here on 104.5 The Zone, we're happy to have you to get your week started. Super Bowl 56 is on the table. That's the topic of conversation. And I'm going to tell you why my faith in Ryan Tannehill has been shaken just a bit based off that game last night. 615-737-1045. You can jump in if you like to. We'll get to your phone calls momentarily. Lucas Panzica is behind the scenes. Lucas does the top of the hour sports update. All right, so I want this stated because I'm going to make fun of me as much as I'm going to make fun of you here. What happened to you during that sports update?
I don't know.
What happened?
It's like there's almost like something got caught in my throat, but there was nothing there. Maybe my throat's just dry, so I'm drinking some water. I don't know. Sometimes this happens when you talk for a living.
Do you know what? Do you know why the only reason I'm bringing it up is because that's happened to me 3 times today, where it's just like a sharp inhale. It almost sounds like I'm burping on the air.
Yes.
That's happened to me 3 times today. And I don't know why. And I thought it's a bit of karma, if I'm being honest with you, because you were making fun of my water, and you did. I think
it's a ridiculous vessel for water.
What's wrong with my boxed water?
It looks like you're drinking fight milk. And I know only people that watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia know what that is, but that's what it looks like.
Well, maybe you wish you had some boxed water to make sure that you don't sound like you're gasping for air.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I could use some fight milk.
Sports break. Yeah, it's okay. In fairness, the boxed water is a bit pretentious. I will grant you that. But it's also it's very eco-friendly because it's a box. It's not a plastic bottle. So I'm trying to be sustainable, trying to reduce my carbon footprint and all that good stuff. 615-737-1045. I'm glad you survived your choking fit. It happened to me. The only reason I brought it up is because it happened to me. I swear to you 3 times in the first 2 hours of the show today.
It's a scary thing.
Maybe we need what are those called? A humidifier. We need a humidifier in the studio because we're gasping for air.
That happens to me if I eat like before a broadcast. If I eat like popcorn or something or like chips, like then something like maybe a grain of salt will get caught in my throat. So I never do that before, but I haven't done that today.
It's a bizarre phenomenon because it's just like a sharp breathing in, and then you just like choke on your words.
You're just incapacitated for a second.
All right. Puka says the boxed water looks like almond milk. How much more in the box? There's plenty left in the box. Thank you for asking.
What's so special about that water? Like, why does it?
Because you can recycle it, you jerk.
You can recycle plastic, too. I don't get it.
Yeah, but it's more recyclable than the plastic.
Or you can just carry around like a bottle, like our great Farm Bureau Health Plans bottle we have
here. I'm going to refill my box, okay? I'm going to refill it full of water. Why are you on this? Why not just let me drink my boxed water? What's wrong with you?
Drink your water.
That's right. I need it.
I will too, yeah.
Apparently we're going to die on the air if we don't drink it. If you're watching on Zone TV, we're swigging vigorously just to keep ourselves moving. 615-737-1045. So my faith in Ryan Tannehill, it took a hit last night. I'm not going to lie to you. I try not to do the prisoner of the moment thing too much, but it was hard not to watching that Super Bowl. I mean, we've talked about the Stafford interceptions, the ability to overcome. We've talked about, him going from basically career loser to now champion, all in the span of 4 games after not having won a playoff game prior to that. And this stat coming out of ESPN Stats and Info from Paul Hembekides, we cited it earlier. Matt Stafford has won 90 career games, including the playoffs. He has led a game-winning drive on 45 of them. So half of his career wins, he has had to win it on a game-winning drive. Now, just to kind of put Ryan Tannehill's numbers in that same context, and maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't, because career wins for a quarterback, we've done it with Jimmy Garoppolo. It's a bit of a hollow stat, right? But just for context, Ryan Tannehill, 73 career wins across his time in the NFL against Matt Stafford's 90, right? So Ryan Tannehill in his career is 73 and 60 as a win percentage of 549. You look at the amount of game-winning drives that Ryan Tannehill has led in those 73 career wins. There have been 26 game-winning drives and 25 fourth-quarter comebacks for Ryan Tannehill. So Matt Stafford's numbers look a little better. We've talked about his talent being greater. And for the longest, and I still do believe this, right? At my core, I'm not flip-flopping. At my core, I believe that there is a talent level that is of above average competency at the quarterback position that you can win a Super Bowl with. There are flukes, there is randomness, there is luck, there are injuries, there are all different manner of things that can factor into this. But as a talent in a system that fits him, at my core, I still believe that Ryan Tannehill can win a Super Bowl. But watching the biggest difference in the way that Ryan Tannehill responds to throwing interceptions, the way that the team around Ryan Tannehill responds to him turning the ball over, it's not even, it's a night and day difference. We gave you that study last week that put every quarterback, every qualified quarterback in the last 10 years into a chart. And the chart was measuring how a quarterback responds on the passing play directly following them having thrown an interception. So you throw a pick, the very next passing play, how do you respond as far as EPA is concerned, right? Expected points on average. So Matt Stafford at the top of this in the last 10 years, last decade of football, Matt Stafford is by far and away the best quarterback, unfazed on the very next play, passing play, following an interception. It's a very, very narrow control. We're looking at a very, very certain set of data. Ryan Tannehill was the third worst in the last 10 years over the course of the span from 2011 to 2021, right? So maybe that means, maybe that number looks more extreme than it actually is. Maybe it's somewhere closer to the middle, right? Because what you're looking for is no variance. What you're looking for is what the control is, which is Tom Brady, because Brady is the same whether he throws an interception or not, based on the data. And you've got Matt Stafford on the extreme on one hand, on the extreme on one hand, Dak Prescott being the worst of these quarterbacks, qualified quarterbacks, on the play directly following a pick, and Ryan Tannehill being third worst in that data set. I don't know how much I'm just looking at that as a product of recency bias, given that that's the last football game I watched, given that the last football game that I've really, really studied is the Tannehill game against the Bengals and understanding just how different it felt when Ryan Tannehill threw an interception on the first play of the game and when Matt Stafford threw his interceptions in the Super Bowl, and seeing how Matt Stafford responded to his interceptions in the Super Bowl. That moment was enough to, kind of shake my conviction up a little bit, because I don't know how to quantify that. I don't know what it is about an individual, and I don't know how to measure whether it's, lazy. I don't want to say lazy, but like long-running sports cliches. That guy's got it, right? He's got the it factor. Well, what the hell is the it factor? Somebody explain this to me. How do I measure it factor? Are you grading it factor the way that you would rate like a Madden rating for a football player? No. This it factor thing, it doesn't make sense. But right? You just know. You know when a player has it. Well, what does that mean? Until I watch these two quarterbacks in these two situations, independent of one another, and the way that they respond after the fact. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, am I projecting? Am I looking too much into something that I don't have a number that can help me measure? And maybe that's going to bear itself out to be true. Maybe Ryan Tannehill will go on to win a championship in his career, and all of this will be wasted time and spinning of wheels as we try to figure out who actually has or does not have a quarterback. But the more that I watch Stafford's performance and the more that you kind of buy into the way that he carries himself, the way that he manages things, the way that he is unchanging in a similar way that Joe Burrow is. Joe Burrow, who didn't have turnovers, right, was just consistently under duress and was betrayed by his offensive line and, frankly, his play calling on 4th and 1. A stupid decision by the coaching staff to not give their football team the best chance to succeed. It was really disappointing to see. But those moments, that's what decides who wins this thing at the end of it. Not just who's dragging their leg across the finish line at the end of the season, because it's about health, first and foremost. Do you have your players available to play at the time of the championship game or as close to the postseason as humanly possible? And then when you get into it, all right, how can you keep things calm enough around you to maybe not outright stop, but help mitigate all the other craziness that happens in an NFL football game? How can you survive it? How do you survive it? In those moments, that's where we kind of come up with things like clutch gene and it factor and all these things, all these terms, all these phrases that we don't know what they mean, but we just know because it's it. I don't know that Ryan Tannehill is it. I don't. I don't have any proof. I have regular season. I can't discount him for that. But postseason, I don't have that. I don't know why the sample size changes so drastically from that part of the year to the most important part of the year. I don't know if it's just a product of circumstances around him that it's been all year long. But I know that the head coach, Mike Vrabel, at the end of the playoffs, right, at the end of their season, when he gets up on the podium with us on Monday after the fact, and he says, we know we have to be great around Ryan. We know that we have to be great around our quarterback, is what he said. And the whole purpose of the Stafford thing for the Rams was that so not everybody had to be great, plus the quarterback has to not make the mistakes. Matt Stafford gives them the breathing room to where if Sean McVay makes a boneheaded call, Matt Stafford's good enough to bail them out. If Odell Beckham Jr. goes down early on and you have to find ways to adjust, Matt Stafford's good enough to bail you out. I don't know that there is that. And I think that's enough to kind of, shake my resolve a little bit while also being realistic about the situation here and kind of bring a little more scrutiny from my standpoint on Ryan Tannehill. I wonder how you feel about it. 615-737-1045. We'll get your phone calls on this coming up next here on 104.5 The Zone. We haven't even talked about The Rock last night in the Super Bowl pregame hype. A lot of different things about that game that were fun. It's one of the most start-to-finish enjoyable Super Bowl experiences that I've had. I don't know how everybody else experienced it. Do you go to, like, Super Bowl parties? Do you do that?
Yeah, like one of my buddies had some people over, a ton of food, so.
Okay. Well, I mean, maybe it's different because I'm working, because I'm going to do prime time right after the game anyway. Like, I just sequester by myself in my house. And it's just a very much, I don't know, it's probably different from what everybody else does.
I just eat a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad food decisions made on Super Bowl Sunday. Diet starts today.
Had like 4 dinners last night.
Yeah. I was doing pretty good early in the day. I was doing pretty good, and then Dara left, and I started ordering bad food that I did not need to have. By the way, Valentine's Day is today. So we hope that all of you who are celebrating that, all of you who have forgotten that it is Valentine's Day, if those of you who are out there, I did this in advance, far in advance. Hell, I think we did Valentine's Day basically before I went to Mobile, because I knew I was going to be out of town for 2 weeks and it was going to be touch and go. So if you have, if this is your reminder, then go do something about it, dummy, before something bad happens to you today. If actually, by now it's probably too late. By now, there's not much that we can do for you. But in the meantime, we've been talking about Ryan Tannehill. What can Ryan Tannehill do for the Titans based on what we saw from the 2 quarterbacks last night? Again, no situation, no season runs truly parallel to one another. There are going to be a million different things that happen, right? If you're a Marvel fan, it's like the multiverse. There's so many different narratives and story arcs and things that can happen throughout the course of the season that it is impossible to replicate one from another. Truly replicate one from another. But when we look at where the gaps might be, how far away they are, I mean, you guys heard me say it. I feel like it's enough of a drop off between what I saw Stafford do and what I've seen Tannehill do in playoff games that makes me less confident in my position that you can continue to win football games, win championships, truly is the conversation, or at least make a championship game with Ryan Tannehill. 615-737-1045. I'm sure this person is enjoying the words that I'm saying about Ryan Tannehill. It's Darrington, who's up next on 1045 The Zone. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Hey, can we change that to Mount Everest instead of that hill? Because I don't think that's big enough. And, but you're going to have to stay on that one. Hey, we never discussed talent. He has talent, yes. But he doesn't have the intangibles. I think that's what you're looking for. He doesn't have the leader of men as a quarterback position he's supposed to have. So let's talk about the real thing that really happened yesterday. How about the retirement of Michelle Tafoya? How about that? We're going to keep sweeping that under the rug? How about that greatness? How about Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth not calling the Super Bowl? That came to an end, too. So, I mean, that was some good things that actually happened. Well, bittersweet, I should say. You want to keep discussing Ryan Tannehill. Hey, and for all your Alabama fans, remember, Georgia won the championship.
Oh.
I'm out.
What was that? What was that?
I don't know what Alabama fan he's giving a party.
Me neither. He just, maybe somebody's fighting with on Twitter. What happened there? Spice for Alabama fans. Yeah, it's a shame to see Michelle Tafoya. She's not leaving television outright, but she is now, she's doing something in politics.
Yeah, she's going all politics now.
That's interesting. I'm reading the Yahoo News article right now. Done with sports broadcasting and will now enter conservative politics after working the sidelines of Sunday night's Super Bowl. Tafoya told The Athletic that she wrapped up her career as a full-time sports reporter and that she would immediately co-chair Republican businessman Kendall Qualls' campaign to become Minnesota's governor. Huh. How about that? She's a pro. But with that being said, you know, the Ryan Tannehill intangibles thing, that's similar to something that is that Sean Michael Hayden writes on Facebook Live in the Zone TV chat. He says he thinks the answer is this: Tannehill has fake steeliness. In other words, he puts on a face and acts like he is unnerved by mistakes. However, at his core, he is shook when he comes to those mistakes in big moments. When did that become a thing? Because against the Bengals, it felt that way, right? Like it felt like he turtled. It felt like he was rattled. And it felt more like that. Like in the press box, we didn't get that sense. I mean, of course, it's going to be derailing to throw an interception on your literal first offensive play of a playoff game and the nerves that come associated with that. And there were moments like the overthrows where I'm just like, all right, he's playing really, really tight right now, right? Like he looks kind of bound up. But I don't remember, because these are indictments that we used to have about Marcus Mariota, right? Not a great leader of men, not vocal enough, not
indecisive.
Indecisive?
Yeah, I think that was one huge trait when Tannehill took over was his decisiveness to pick a spot.
That's what I'm saying. Go. So, like, how much of this is accurate, and how much of this is something that we just assign because we don't know better, right? Mariota, there was some legitimacy to how much control he was willing to take, and then you go from you go to Tannehill. And you're talking to A.J. Brown, and A.J. Brown is saying, no, he is super hyper specific with us about the way that he wants us to run our routes because he understands that he needs me in X place by the time, or in motion, basically, to a place by the time he throws that ball. I may not be in the spot that he is throwing the ball to, but our timing has to be like that. And that's proof of concept. That works. Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown have a tremendous connection that way. So when did we change? When did we collectively change our minds about Ryan Tannehill that he's not strong enough of a leader? Matt, what makes Matt Stafford, great leader of men, other than the fact that he's not scared of interceptions? I don't know how much of a realistic narrative that is about Ryan Tannehill. I don't know if that's just something that we do in sports when we get tired of a quarterback that we don't think has enough to get it done. We start attacking his intangibles because we don't know what else to make of it. Again, the lack of science, that's the part of football that drives me nuts. I think it's the part of football that makes it compelling, is you keep trying to analyze, and then all of a sudden it's something that you have no numbers for whatsoever, and it completely takes all of your analysis and flushes it. James is in Ashland City, wants to weigh in on this Monday. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Buck. Hey, man, I've been a lifelong fan since the late 70s. Well, we had the team here, obviously, until the late.
Hey, James, I'm sorry. It sounded like you had a good point that you wanted to make. Your phone line is terrible. Give us a call back if you have a more secure phone connection. 615-737-1045. You can jump in that way. Again, sorry, didn't want to drop you, James, but phone line wasn't great. With Stafford, man, we played this audio for you earlier, and actually, I want to play this audio of him talking about the game plan when Odell Beckham Jr. went down, because this kind of speaks to the presence of mind that you have to have when something goes catastrophically wrong, right? At the time, it looked like OBJ being lost for the game was going to stall them out entirely. And Matt Stafford last night in his post-game availability talked about how they were able to adjust.
Played a bunch of man coverage after he went out, and they did a great job. They were doubling Coop, playing press, and getting in our guys' grills. We were close on some plays. Just missed a few here and there. Yeah. They could have been big game changers. Thought Sean did a great job at the end of the game, letting us go play with some tempo, getting them out of some of those man calls, and we were able to go execute.
So they adjusted. The adjustments worked. Sean McVay kept coming back to the connection between Stafford and Kupp. Right? Here's the difference between, and this is going to be a more philosophical question about how the Titans, for example, play football versus how the Rams just won a football game. Again, you can't completely pivot to a style that you are not built to play in, right? The Titans aren't built to play the way the Los Angeles Rams play. The Titans aren't built to play, well, they're more similar to what the Bengals want to do because the Bengals want to run the football. But from my standpoint, in the way that Sean McVay seemed to recognize in real time, okay, Kupp and Stafford, that's my best thing. That's what I've got on offense. Stafford to Kupp. Even if there's penalties, by the way, the offsetting penalty situation, maddening. maddening to watch that play out in a Super Bowl where there's a touchdown on a line. But what did McVay do on the very same series? He went back to another Cooper Kupp touchdown pass call or touchdown reception call. They kept feeding the ball to their best player, their best connection, their best thing. With the Titans, what is that? Is that Derrick? Is that just continuing to feed the ball to Derrick Henry because eventually something good is going to happen? There's probably some truth to that, right? That's been the thing. That's been the thing that's worked. That's how they're built to play. It just happened to me again, Lucas. That sharp. Did you hear that?
I did not.
Okay.
You're masking it.
I'm trying. It's happened multiple times today. I'm deeply concerned.
Yeah, drink some of your vegetable broth to wash it down.
It does. The boxed water does look like a container of vegetables.
Credit Darrington for throwing that in the YouTube chat.
Oh, so you're not even...
That was not original content.
You just tried to pass the chat's jokes off as your own?
No, I gave him full credit.
Shame on you. Vegetable broth. I think for the Titans, that thing has been Derrick, right? But at what point do you adapt? Do you adjust? I think the Tim Kelly thing is going to be a big part of this equation because I don't think that's their thing anymore. I think that's what it has been. And I'm not saying it needs to be a complete and total departure from Derrick. But how much better, for example, let's look at the Bengals running game, right? Because the Bengals were going to continue to try and run the football, did continue to try and run the football. The rushing defense for Cincinnati just completely shut the Rams down. So the Rams had to pivot, and turns out that's what the Rams do better anyway. So they just were playing to their players' strengths. But Joe Mixon last night, 15 attempts, 72 yards. They popped a couple. Well, they tried to pop a couple of plays. Actually, they did. It was one attempt by Jamar Chase. It was only for 4 yards, but it ended up converting a first down. So it was critical. Burrow tried to take off a couple of times, wasn't able to do much, and Pirine had 2 attempts for no yardage gained. But the Bengals wanted to continue to run the football. They were having success running the football. Why? Because they were coming out predominantly throwing. It was easier for the run game to have success because you weren't just running into 8 or 9-man boxes over and over and over again, and it's maddening, and you're banging your head on the wall. And repeating these things is the definition of insanity. And for a while, there's been nothing, it's not been insane to do that here, right? Because Derrick is the thing. He may get back to that place. I have no idea what the next season is going to look like for Derrick Henry. I don't know. I saw people trying to diagnose during NFL Honors when we were in L.A., trying to diagnose whether he was walking with a limp or not, things like that, like he's making his rounds at Radio Row. Like taking foot pics at a press conference and trying to get them diagnosed on the internet as maybe something's wrong. I watched that, and it occurred to me, and I've felt this way for some time. I don't know that the Titans need to continue to do that as Derrick ages. And he's not old, but he's 28. Running backs don't necessarily have the shelf life, even as great as this one is. He's already exceeded the average NFL career lifespan, right? So now everything else, it just seems like gravy, especially if he can produce at a high level. But why can't that thing be Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown? That works fine. It works better than fine. That's the most efficient thing that they do by a mile. It's not running the football, even though, Mike Vrabel wears the hat and it's run the damn ball, and this is how Titans football is played. Great running backs and strong defense and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm tired of that. I want to see what it looked like against the San Francisco 49ers. It didn't have to be that kind of volume, but it needs to be something closer to that, especially when things get down in the clutch. The Titans are an enigma as far as the way that other teams look at them because they're trying to figure out, there's an NFL team in 2021 who's 2 and 4 minute offense involves a 250-pound running back, and they win? What is that? If I told you that on your face and you weren't a Tennessee sports fan, you would look at that like, what the hell are you talking about? That can't possibly be effective. And it's worked. But to a certain extent, I think there needs to be an evolution. And that evolution needs to look something more like how much more confident and comfortable Ryan Tannehill is when they are directly targeting and trying to get A.J. Brown involved in the game plan.
Isn't that what they've tried to address? Or isn't that the point of the move of bringing in Tim Kelly?
Sure. No, I'm not saying anything they don't know.
Right.
You know, this is not some grand revelation internally. If I was to try and do that, I'm not telling them how to do their jobs. This is the move that they've made. Now, I don't necessarily know that it's going to involve A.J. Brown in the way that I'm saying it should involve A.J. Brown, but at what point do we start to have a legitimate conversation about the best player on the football team no longer being Derrick Henry? At what point? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I'm not saying that time has come. I'm not saying that time I don't know. But I know that when I watch that, the connection between AJ and Tannehill, that's as good as I feel about anything that they do. And it's a hell of a lot more efficient than the way that they run the ball. Even as the volume, I understand the importance of it. 615-737-1045. All right, James is going to give us another try in Ashland City. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, you called me right on I was right on a back road, man. So I apologize about that.
All good.
Love the show, man. First of all, I want to get that off my chest. I think absolute great replacement for those three knuckleheads that preceded you. Enjoy the show. Listen to you when I'm running my errands every day.
Thank you.
But me, I'm a lifelong Ram fan, and I've been a Ram fan when they were in L.A. the first time when I was a kid. And it's just for me, it's the win in St. Louis. I call the St. Louis years the exile years because really and truly, I'm sure you're not. I know you were out there, but it's going to take a couple of years, I think, before that community, even though it's the second largest TV market in America, to probably embrace the Rams
Sure.
because they've been gone for 2 decades.
Sure.
And the reason I feel like they left Anaheim the first time, and I guess what was it, 94, was because people's apathy towards football and supporting the Rams. However, I think winning, like we've said before on the show, winning changes the narrative. When you're winning football games or baseball games or hockey games, people are going to come out and support you. And one last thing I want to say, this win for me was very special because all those years, this is way before you. I'm a little older than you, Buck, but in the late 70s, mid 70s, early 80s, when I was a small child, watching those games, the Rams were there knocking on the door every single year from 75 to 80 when they finally made it to the Super Bowl. But either the Cowboys or the Minnesota Vikings spoiled their dreams. And I heard it from a lot of people I belong to a club, Rams Meetup. A lot of people my age and older were just in tears, the fact that they actually finally got a championship for the city. And so that's all I wanted to say. I mean, this is a big win for people like Lawrence McCutcheon, Pat Hayden, the great Jackie Slater, in my opinion, is the best offensive lineman of all time. So that's what this win's for us Ram fans that are over the age of 45. Thank you for the time for me to talk about that and keep doing the good stuff that you're doing. I think you're one of the better guys on the radio. Appreciate you so much.
Thanks, James. It almost sounded like an acceptance speech at the end, didn't it?
Yeah, it was good.
No, congratulations to James and to any Rams. That really matched up with our Oscars music. He was just under the gun and he was saying some nice things, so Lucas held up on the music a little longer than he might have. Last call for phone calls coming up next. I think it's interesting to kind of diagnose, and we'll have time to talk about this, right? The Tannehill, A.J. Brown theory that I'm posing to you and what the Titans have done this offseason so far. Not complete, but so far to address it. We'll finish up with your calls next.
Hey, Rocket, what's my mortgage rate? Rocket, when am I closing? Is anyone there? Rockets are really cool, but they don't speak mortgage. You need a home loan expert for that. Get pre-approved for your next mortgage at thehomeloanexpert.com.
All right, let's do it rapid fire, shall we? Because we got polls to wrap up the day, but we're doing last call for phone calls here on 104.5 The Zone. We got Tony in Madison, who's up next on this Monday. What's up, Tony?
Hey, I just feel like that Matthew Stafford is much more accurate pass thrower than Ryan Tannehill due to Tannehill's offensive line, pass protection.
Yeah, I mean, Stafford was well protected last night for sure. That's going to be something that they absolutely have to address in the offseason. Stafford, ball placement is something, but like Ryan Tannehill, it depends where we're looking at the accuracy, right? Like, are we talking just overall accuracy? Are we talking about certain throws that Tannehill can't make that Stafford can? Like, I think it needs to be a little more layered than just saying Matt Stafford is more accurate than Ryan Tannehill, because I don't think that necessarily equates. I think you have to take a little bit of a larger view on that, but I understand why people would feel that way. Donna is in Goodlettsville up next. Hello, Donna.
Hi. I was just wondering, what is the percentage of times that the Bengals scored in the 20 once they were in the 20-yard line?
What was their red zone percentage? I can look that up for you here in just a second. In fact, Lucas, go ahead, Donna.
It just seems like most of the time they just have to kick a field goal. I mean an actual touchdown, and I would trust Ryan Tannehill any day over their quarterback in the red zone.
Donna, that's something I brought up quite a bit, right? We've seen that throughout the course of the postseason. That's why McPherson has so many field goal attempts, is because they stall out.
1 for 3 in the red zone last night.
So on the season, if we're just looking at the regular season, this does not include the playoffs. Cincinnati by percentage, and this is including only touchdowns. Cincinnati was 23rd in the NFL. They scored a touchdown on 54.5% of their red zone trips. For context, Tennessee was 9th in the league this year, 62.5. So that is that's a substantial difference. Cincinnati Reds, again, Cincinnati's offensive line, they weren't built to play for the Super Bowl. They were built to survive. We'll talk about that more later. Joshua in Springfield is the last one on this Monday. Hello, Joshua.
Hey, Buck. I still remember when we met in person over right by Dave & Buster's at the scoreboard, I think it was.
Sure. What you got for me, Joshua?
Well, I was thinking about what you were saying about Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown. I think it is time to make the move. Two-toe blue, what can Brown do for you? I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you for the call, Joshua. I like it. I think there needs to be that kind of philosophical. Again, I'm not saying that I'm telling them anything they don't know. I'm just saying that's how I feel about it. So I'm glad to know we're aligned, Joshua. It was good to meet you. I think that was at Scoreboard. Anyway, polls.
Stop the count. Stop the count. The polls have closed and the votes have been tallied. Now, here's your favorite Buck Reising Show correspondent, Lucas Polzica.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, powered by Ford, driven by people. Was The Rock necessary? 77% say no. I thought it was fine. It just took too long.
If they weren't already ready for the kickoff, then I would have felt differently about it. But the play, Sean McVay got into it a little bit. They were hype.
I don't know. The look on Zach Taylor's face looked miserable when they zoomed in on him about 90 seconds into the monologue.
I think Vrabel would have told him to get the hell off the field.
Best Super Bowl halftime show. Dre, Snoop, Eminem, etc. What we saw last night. Prince or other. 55% go with what we saw last night. 37% say Prince. Crazy Kyle says, what about The Who?
No, not The Who. It's not The Who. The Who at 175 years old is not beating Prince or what we watched last night. Stop it.
I did enjoy The Who. Country Hardheader says Bruno and Beyonce.
Yeah, that was well produced. Again, for the time period that they filled, the efficiency that they got it in, and just for the quality of the songs, man. So good. Hit after hit.
Do you know what War Daddy means? That is what Sean McVay called Matt Stafford after the game. 84% say no.
Okay, well, we had to look it up on Urban Dictionary, but I don't know if we want to relive that way. Lucas is he's sweating. He's sweating back there.
Is this the perfect send-off for Aaron Donald to go into retirement? 75% say yes.
Yeah, the numbers are crazy. He's an 8-time Pro Bowler, 7-time first-team All-Pro, He's been one of the most dominant defensive players in football, and he's only 30 years old, and now he's a champion. If he chooses to retire, now would be pretty ideal.
Does someone need to take Quentin Spain's phone away from him? 59% say yes, 41% no, we need his tweets.
Keep letting him tweet. All it does is produce content, especially given that Lucas is baiting professional athletes, giant rage monsters, from my Twitter account. What are you hoping that I'll get, dragged by Darius Leonard again? That was a tough.
That would be funny if Spain went at you.
Well, it's a little less impactful than Darius.
You want that to happen.
No, I don't want that to happen. That was terrible last time it happened to me. Again, Darius Leonard and I have since patched things up, but it was a very unpleasant experience for me. I don't fear Quentin Spain the way that I do Darius Leonard, though.
Famous last words. Those are the polls.
Those are the polls. That's the show. We're done for the day. I'll be back on 3HL later. Blaine and Mick here next.